Thanks everybody for joining us today. My name is Doug Whitaker. I'm with Cloud Design Solutions. Today we're going to be talking about cloud communications, specifically the contact center. We'll talk about some trends and some insights regarding using cloud technologies with contact center and CX applications. Today I am joined by Hunter Edmonston. Hunter is a field sales engineer with Avant Communications. Avant is a close partner with Cloud Design Solutions. They help us with access to providers, and Hunter's going to be helping us with some technical advice today. Thanks for joining us, Hunter.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Doug.
All right, so let's talk quickly about what we're going to be going through today. It's from the agenda. Number one, talk a little bit about Cloud Design Solutions, and then we'll go into the challenge of using legacy technology, and we'll explore what a modern contact center and the cloud application will do for you. We'll look at some success stories, the business case, and then we'll wrap up with cloud design. Today's meant to be a conversation, and so you'll hear Hunter and I go back and forth, and so I'll enjoy that. Hunter, what do you think of this slide right here?
Big fan. I see a bunch of different emoticons, emojis, infographics. It looks like a large world of technology, so I'm interested to see how you're going to explain all that. So
yeah, well, the reason I point out is because I actually used AI to help create that graphic. And so I think
awesome.
that's pretty cool. Yeah, there's one other one I'll point out later on, but yeah, the key is that especially with cloud communications and contact center, AI has a lot to do with it these days. A lot of the focus is around artificial intelligence, and so that's going to be one of the things that we'll explore during today's discussion. Right, so about cloud design, our mission. We act as a communication advisor for companies that are transitioning over to cloud communications. If you take a look at the overall landscape, about 30% of organizations have already transitioned to cloud communications. The answer is there's a lot of different providers out there. There's some things to explore. There's some good providers out there, and they do different things. And so some providers have a strong fit in certain areas, and others have a strong fit in other areas. And specifically, we help our customers go through, assess what they need to do, identify the partners that are going to fit those needs, and then we'll go in and we'll help you with the negotiations, procurement of the actual application. So that's what Cloud Design Solutions does. Personally, I am a president of Cloud Design Solutions. I've been in the industry for many years with industry leaders like RingCentral, Aspect, and Avaya. And I've had positions with leadership positions around both unified communications and over 20 years in contact center. So it's one of those things that we'll be able to talk about today. I've also worked all around the world. I'm one of those persons that's been on a plane constantly and traveled to many different, every continent and many different cities within the different continents. So actually, I don't think I've been to Antarctica, so I can't count that. But
not yet.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so I actually go back here. If you take a look here at that picture there, I'll point out that was taken during the summer. All right, I live in New York, and that's where we're at today. Take a look at this. There's a picture of our facility today. I took that this morning. So I thought you might find that interesting because you're in the South, right?
That's right, South Carolina. We're cold. We're in the 20s, but no snow on the ground for us.
We had a lot of snow this morning. It was slip sliding to work.
Wow, gracious.
So here's a picture of Steve Jobs. I like Steve Jobs. Now, I am not an Apple customer. I don't have any Apple devices, but I happen to think that Steve Jobs changed our world probably more than anybody else in the world. Today, actually, obviously he passed away, I think in 2011, but we're constantly using the technology that he led. If you take a look at that picture right there, I think that's an iPod that he's holding, but that eventually became the iPhone. And I think a lot of people even watching this video are going to be using mobile devices that are based upon the designs that he came out with. And so you think about this quote right here. You've got to start with the customer experience and work back toward the technology, not the other way around. And we've seen products out there. Somebody comes out with something really cool, but there isn't necessarily a market for it because it isn't necessarily solving a problem that people have. It isn't really fitting within a strategy that organizations have. And he really redeveloped the thinking around product development, product management, go-to-market. And I think we can thank him for that. And you see that today within cloud technologies. It's something that's very nice because it's very easy to use. You think about technology, around the turn of the century, 2000, it's complex. You had a whole bunch of different technologies that were out there, difficult to use. Each had their own administration that were complex to learn. You had to go through a lot of training courses to use them. Isn't necessarily the case anymore. So I want to start, Hunter, with a contact center situation I had personally earlier this month. It was an inbound journey, and I had to call into one of those contact centers that we all need to contact at some point in time. And it wasn't necessarily an ideal situation. I had to look up the telephone number, and I had to identify how to even contact them. They had a main number. And I called into it, and what I got was a legacy IVR application. And it had me put in my ID, but then it actually had me put in some unusual information that wasn't necessarily right at my fingertips. And so I had to hang up and I had to call back, et cetera, to get that unique information. But the IVR, once it had the unique information, got to a point where I couldn't go any further. I needed to talk to somebody. And it didn't give you the option to even get to an actual agent. And so I hit a brick wall. And so I had to go back to the internet. I looked up a whole bunch of different telephone numbers. And I finally found one that people suggested that you could get to an agent with. And so I went through the same thing. And this one had a similar IVR. It wasn't the same one, odd, but it had the same functionality where I had to put in my ID and I had some unique information that I need to go through. But this time it gave the option to get to an agent. And it looked at the estimated wait time. Let me know that the estimated wait time was going to be a while. And so I said, okay, I'm going to do a callback. It actually gave me the option of having a callback, which I don't know about you, but I love it when it does that because it saves me from sitting there listening to the phone muted. And then, all of a sudden an agent comes on and you have to quickly unmute or they hang up on you. And so I did the scheduled callback. In this situation, it took about 30 minutes and it called me back and it put me at the head of the queue. And I finally got to a person, and the person was very nice. He helped me through things, but he had a difficult time because he didn't have the solution at his fingertips. He had to check with different people. He had to get approval for things. There was literally 4 or 5 times where he had to put me on hold for about 10 minutes at a time. It was over an hour and a half. It was a 98-minute call. And so at the end of it, he said, well, hopefully this worked. It's going to take about a month to get this done. And so if you don't see it resolved in the next month, please call back. And so, yeah, exactly.
Not what you want to hear.
Yeah, not what I wanted to hear. So it wasn't ideal. I did solve the situation. And I actually got notice last week that it was resolved. But it was a problem, right? And so you just look at this situation. I had to call in once. I got into a number that had a brick wall. Then I had to call back after looking up another telephone number right on the internet, but you had to go through some different options. Got to somebody. It took a while to get to somebody. And then, like I said, over an hour and a half telephone call to get through it. So difficult situation. Have you had any situations like that?
Oh gosh, yeah. So we were affected, as most of the Southeast was, with Hurricane Helene, and so our 6-inch creek rose almost 17 feet up about 150 yards from the house and made it all the way to the house about 7 feet up our house. And so thankfully we have flood insurance, but one of the issues we ran into was our flood insurance provider has an IVR, not an IVA, right? So that's a piece to talk about too, right? The difference between interactive voice response and an intelligent virtual agent. So going through an IVR tree took multiple times. I think we went through anywhere from 20 to 30 phone calls just to get to an agent. So it was a pretty terrible experience, to be honest with you. One that we're still waiting 9 or 10 weeks to be resolved. And so I can definitely understand how important the inbound journey is. And then what service offerings are available to you between an IVR and an IVA, right? And how that inbound journey ultimately affects your decision to remain a customer even, right? Or some of those longer term effects. So I definitely have had this experience recently as well.
Yeah. How are you going to know if it gets resolved? Just curiosity.
Yeah, so mine will be when the insurance company eventually comes back and reaches out to me. So it's in their hands, right?
Yeah.
And no longer in my hands, which is a pretty frustrating thing as a consumer, right?
So you're gonna cross your fingers, you're gonna wait, and you're gonna hope.
Yep,
That's it.
100%. All those
Yeah.
things for the last 8 weeks currently.
Yeah.
Yes.
Not ideal. Not ideal.
No.
Well, there was recently a study by Deloitte Digital. This came out in May of this year. It was called The New Era of Contact Center Transformation. And it looked at some of the problems within the contact center. And in their study, they found that about 45% of contact centers failed to meet their goals in 2023. And dive into some of the top issues that were out there. 27% of the organizations they surveyed said that channel expansion had actually increased their service inquiries. They said about 76% of, say, their agents are overwhelmed by systems, information, just doing their daily job. Being a contact center agent is not easy. And they also found that about 52% had annual agent attrition. All right, and so that's high. Used to be 40, 45%. You know, in contact center, you have a higher attrition than other organizations, other job roles, but 52% on average for this study is very high. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, those are big issues. And it sort of explains, and you take a look at those issues, why organizations aren't meeting their goals. So, question would be, why is that journey that we just went through? Why would it be like that? Right? Why would the insurance company that you dealt with, why would it be so difficult? What's the difference between a connected experience with the IVA? You mentioned that before.
Yeah.
Versus something like an old-fashioned, IVR. And so I have this graphic here. I heard somebody call it this about a month ago. So I put together this graphic. Once again, using AI helped me do it, but I had to put in all the content because in a contact center, there's a lot of different technologies. You have many different systems, you know, automatic call distributor, you have voicemail, you might have web chat, you have carrier services, you have quality management, recording, workforce management, a whole bunch of different things, many different systems. These different systems have very limited integration between them. They probably don't share any information between them. Each one has their own administrative interface. Each one has their own data that you got to go at with reporting, and probably those reporting tools are all different. And they have to have a lot of training in these legacy applications to get to do them. And even in that training, there's a lot of times you run into a situation where you literally need to be a programmer. You need coding skills to be able to do anything. Does this sound familiar to you, Hunter?
Oh gosh, yeah. I was just thinking the same thing. You know, the one takeaway that I get from Frankenstack here is, you know, you might be lucky to have a specific vendor or hardware manufacturer that can do a handful of these things, right? But everything else has got to be tied together with some type of API, right? If they can even tie together, right? Maybe they even use different types of APIs, right? So getting all that together requires development, right? And ongoing development to maintain them as each desolate system updates, right? Or potentially a piece breaks between them. So having them all scattered, or what we like to call tech sprawl, that's usually not going to end in a great solution by any means.
Yeah, well, and the other problem is a lot of these legacy applications have proprietary APIs. So you
Right.
literally need to go to them to learn about it. Hopefully they have something that it is published in proprietary API, but you have to go to them to get that training. There's other situations where you actually have to do all the professional services through them. So that's the other problem that's out there. All right, so let's talk about modern contact centers using cloud technology. Contact center as a service is what's known. You're going to see a lot of the organizations out there labeling their products CX, and that's talks about customer experience because that's what organizations are trying to do. They're trying to give a better customer experience, and CX is a big part of that. And so they're usually built around a decision engine. All right. And so what you're going to find out is that AI is being incorporated into these decision engines. A lot of times the decision engine may consult with AI, But AI is actually taking the place of these decision engines, making them more intelligent. Second thing is that it's both inbound and outbound. So somebody contacts me, all right, I can handle it, but also let's do some outreach. Let them know that there's an issue, maybe that they owe us money in a collection situation or in a sales situation. But it's a single application that's doing inbound, outbound with a unified decision engine. And then you look at digital channels. We're used to voice, but you also have web chat, you have social media, text messaging, email, app services, even video. There's different applications that are out there that customers want to contact us with. So it's that concept of a single application with all these capabilities and what's referred to as omni-channel. So I can handle any channel with any agent as long as they're trained and be able to handle that with the soft skills, being able to do that. Next thing is that you have other applications that are built in around that, workforce engagement applications like workforce management, that's forecasting, scheduling, and tracking. It's recording. It's quality management against that recording. That's going against the recording and just saying, are we doing the right things? It's getting analytics. It's doing surveys of our customers, either voice or digital surveys, email surveys, web surveys, et cetera, so that now we can get the voice of the customer. Bottom line is that I'm getting a whole bunch of information, and now I'm able to drive a series or a cycle of improvement. And then you also have those APIs. Big difference now is that these APIs are non-proprietary, they're published, and they're REST APIs so that it's easy to integrate to other things that are out there. Finally, you have unified administration with unified analytics across there. So now I'm going to be able to get a complete customer journey, understand what everybody's doing to be able to solve their problems. And by the way, combine it with other information, example, financial data, product data, the operations data. It also includes things like automation driven by AI, and also integration to other systems that are out there. It's fairly standard to be able to link in your application directly into Salesforce or Microsoft Dynamics or Zendesk, some of the other applications that are out there. And so as part of the core application, it's unified into the customer ecosystem, makes it extremely easy for an agent to get going, get onboarded, learn how to use it, and then just do their daily life. The other part about this within a cloud application doesn't care where the agent is. They can be in the office, they could be at home, they could be in another office. It treats everybody equally. And so it really supports and drives that hybrid environment. You have any thoughts on this?
I do actually. One thing that as you were building that out, the graphic there, one thing that I thought of was, if you look at the outside ring, big picture, right? Outside ring, these are the things that are going to make you as a business owner or you as someone who's supporting an end user, this is going to make your business more efficient, right? It's ultimately going to have cost savings. It's going to allow you to have agent retention, things like that. But as you drill down to this graphic, you could just about take the word decision engine AI. You could just about take that and stick the word customer right there. Because if you look, as you're drilling down further, you're getting more and more services and more ways to connect to the customer. So from a full centric picture here, we're seeing, hey, I've got all these tools that supports my organization. And as I get closer through this omni-channel ring, I get closer to the inbound, outbound. Well, what is it ultimately about? And it's how AI is going to affect your ultimate goal, which is to service your customer, right? Without any customers, you've got no business, right? So I think that's important to call out. Having Anywhere agents too, being able to have a CCaaS platform that goes across all these different technologies and all these different types of offerings inside of the CCaaS space, that allows you to create a better workforce, right? To create a more distributed workforce. You're not isolated to a single location of hiring people or personnel. You can get better quality agents who can work on a different schedule, things like that, all because you have the ability to work from anywhere.
Absolutely. I'll point out here, if you look at the lower left-hand corner, Cloud Design does have a guide for contact center as a service. So if you are interested in that, just scan that code and it'll bring you over to that information right on our website. Now, you just talked about artificial intelligence, and there's a bunch of technologies involved in artificial intelligence. And so machine learning, LLM, large language models with natural language processing. A few years ago, we heard a lot about conversational AI. That's being able to converse with AI from a natural language standpoint, and it's able to respond, and we can have a almost human conversation. The past few years, we've heard a lot about generative AI, being able to create content. A lot of people are even creating things like these PowerPoint presentations using AI to help and create that. In the past year, and I think 2025 is going to be the year of agentic AI. That's a situation where now the AI can make decisions. It can analyze it and literally make the decisions and take action based upon that. Computer vision is using things like facial recognition. So now I can increase the security. And of course, speech recognition and speech synthesis are applications so that now I can have those human conversations with somebody. And so AI is taking in all these things. Once again, we have a guide around AI. If you take a look at the lower left-hand corner, scan that, it'll bring you to our guide, AI and Cloud Communications. But now we're talking about use cases, AI assistance. It helps the agents and employees do their work. Speech attendants, that's a front end that really gives a natural interface to customers so that they can get to somebody very quickly, right away. Just tell us who you want to talk to, and it'll get you there. Virtual assistants, and so that's a situation where it may help the employees get through their day. Maybe it's scheduling things, or maybe it's just providing information to them, streaming that information. Predictive routing is taking a look at who the customer is, what they mean to us, getting them to the right person that is best able to handle that. AI-infused workforce engagement, that's more intelligent quality management. Maybe it's going through and automatically grading it rather than having a person do that. Maybe it's using more intelligent workforce management so that it's using predictive analytics right within the forecasting, scheduling, and tracking process. Sentiment analysis is literally listening to a conversation or looking at that digital conversation, and it's telling people right away, right now, how it's going. Maybe they need some help. Maybe you can provide some information to the agent. Maybe a supervisor needs to get involved. Dynamic analytics takes a look at reams of information that's out there, all that data that's collected, and it's sort of surfacing up information that is difficult to understand the correlations that you might not see without it. And then conversational intelligence, literally taking a look at the conversation as it happens and helping the agents, or by the way, the virtual AI through that process. And so these are the different applications that are used within AI. You talked about one of our partners the other day, Hunter, Sonos, and how that's an application that is making big changes. Talk about that a little bit.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So that's it's using AI, right? And the one thing I'll say before I even mention this specific example is the cool thing is that if you're watching this, you don't necessarily have to know anything about artificial intelligence. That's Doug's job and my job, right?
Yes,
and
absolutely.
So we're here as a resource for you guys. I know artificial intelligence for a lot of people is somewhat intimidating, right? Because there's so many pieces of it. We're only talking about the pieces of it that affect the customer journey or the customer process, right? Or what we call the CX or customer experience. So make sure you reach out if you have any questions around that or comment if you've got some questions for Doug. But yeah, let me tell you a little bit about Sonos. There's another provider as well or supplier out there that also does a similar process. I actually got to see it today live called Crisp. So they both do some similar things. It's very revolutionary. What it does is they can do accent neutralization. And what does that look like, right? So it's no surprise that a lot of the contact centers, right, BPOs, contact centers, any type of agents, they've moved to a different location, right? So we have examples in India. India is one of the largest call center employers in the world. Same with now the Philippines, right? And so the cool thing about this product is that in real time, it can be installed on the agent's desktop. It can be deployed like any other administrative software. But in real time, it allows accent neutralization. And in the case of Crisp now, allows for real-time translation, which is really cool, as I learned today. So really neat things. A great example of that would be you've got a provider that speaks in their native accent, or in this case, a customer service agent that speaks in their native accent. And sometimes that might be difficult to understand if you don't speak that exact language, or you don't speak that dialect. And what this button allows you to do is it uses AI with a very, very small amount of latency that's not even noticeable to the human ear. And it's going to take their native accent in real time and translate it to more of colloquial English. So the idea that you can hear every single piece. Now, what's interesting to me is at first I thought, you know what, that's kind of weird to me though. That takes away that agent's identity or what makes them them. And I ended up hearing from two different agents that they actually prefer having accent neutralization with AI because it allows for the conversation to go much smoother. There's less time in the actual customer journey of repeating themselves. There's a lot less noise because noise is also being canceled during those interactions. And so there's some really, really neat things. I could go on for a long time to talk about it. I won't, but there's some really unique things that are going to benefit us using AI today in the contact center space.
It sounds like groundbreaking technology.
It
honestly, you've got these situations, and just sometimes it's difficult to communicate with somebody. This helps it.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Okay, so let's go back to some of those issues we heard about earlier from that Deloitte study. The issue that specifically, the first one, they said 27% say channel expansion has actually increased their service inquiries. Well, that's a problem. And you think about why that might be. Well, here's another thing that came out of that study. 74% of the companies that they studied used live web chat, but only 25% used an omni-channel routing engine as part of that. And so there's two things that are part of this, is that they're having dedicated agents around that. And also there's a good chance that their customers are hitting that wall that can't be solved any further. And so what they're doing is picking up the phone. They're basically doubling the traffic in those situations. And so when you're talking about a cloud application, omni-channel application, it allows for universal agents. Universal agents can take all those inquiries. You don't have to use them, but it's helpful. You have some agents especially that are going to be more apt to be able to handle different types of transactions. And so this allows to load balance better. And of course, that's going to be better economies of scale. The other part about it, it lets you do multiplicity, multi-session channels. All right. So if you're talking about web chat, if you're talking about some of the messaging channels, even email, I might be able to handle more than one at a time. They're also asynchronous. And what that means with asynchronous is that I have a different service level expectation. If I call on the phone, I am expecting a service level of probably 45 seconds. All right. If I'm going to call in or I'm going to do a web chat, I'm expecting somebody to respond to that web chat probably within a minute. If I'm doing a message, a chat via text message, that's actually about 5 minutes. If it's email, it's actually about 2 hours. Your expectation is they get back to you within about 2 hours based upon studies I've seen. And so what that means is that with these different channels between the multiplicity and the asynchronous channels, now I can work a little bit different and get better efficiency around it. I can deliver the different contacts that are digital contacts, voice contacts, whatever, and they can handle more of them at once, make the agents more efficient, by the way, and get back to the customers better. And so I'm able to actually increase the service level while reducing the time associated with that and increasing our productivity. Callback, you heard of the situation earlier that I talked about with that customer journey. Callback is great. And you can do queued callback. That's where it sits in queued and maybe puts you at the top of the queue when your time comes up, or even scheduled callback. Scheduled callback lets me go in, schedule a time for that callback, and that gets me into a different time area so that I can manage the service level. So when you're using callback, rather than having people in queue, this gives you more control, more alignment around those service levels. Proactive notification. We talked about both of our situations. We were sort of left hanging after our contacts. And so we have to contact back to them to get an update, or hopefully they'll get back to us. Well, with proactive notifications, maybe it gives me an alert, it gives me an update on where things are in the process. That's always very helpful, but more importantly, it preempts those customer contacts. AI digital bots, typically going to be built into these contact center applications so that you can automate routine interactions. And then if it can't be automated, then you escalate it to a live agent and you guide the agent through that process. And then finally, workforce management. Take a look at our employees. Let's take a look at the expectations around the traffic. Let's schedule our people so that they're going to be there during the higher traffic periods, as opposed to just waiting around, waiting for calls, or waiting for digital interactions. Any other thoughts around this?
No, this is good. So the one thing that I was just thinking when you were talking about it, I was like, man, proactive notifications. How great would it be if I got a text message from my specific insurance carrier that said, hey, I just want to let you know we've been checking on this, right? And we're still in process, but at least you know it's in process and it's being touched, right? I think that's a huge piece of customer service these days, is that outbound touch, right? And making sure that your conversation with your external customer is as good as it is internally, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to mention here at Cloud Design, we do have a digital transformation guide. You can scan this and you can get access to that digital transformation guide. It'll dive into more of the advantages and the things that the considerations around using digital channels. Right, let's talk about the other issue. They said 76% of agents are overwhelmed by systems and information. And in fact, typical contact center agents are using anywhere from 3 to 6 different applications to solve a customer problem. And so when you have this, it makes it very difficult for being an agent. And so let's take a look at some of the things that a modern contact center application is going to do to be able to help your agents through that process. Number one, it is a unified application. They're not using a web chat application and a voice application and an email response management system. It's one application with a single interface. It's making the decisions for the agent, delivering those contacts automatically. And so that makes it much easier than a whole bunch of different applications. The contact center is integrated directly into the CRM. It brings up the customer record automatically. They have one interface to use. It uses AI assistance, not just for the customer, but also for the agent. Literally, it's a co-pilot situation. It's called Agent Assist, and it presents information. It will stream information, knowledge base articles, or suggestions to the agent as they're going through it. It also has the workforce engagement management capabilities built into it. So it better prepares the agents to handle difficult or complex interactions. Combined with AI assistance, it's going to be able to guide them through it, handle it quicker, much more effective, solve it that first time to drive first contact resolution. And then finally, AI automation. You can offload those simple interactions through AI, but you can even do things like automate the after-call work process. About a third of your typical work process for an agent is in after-call work. Well, it can capture the notes for the agents. It can capture the to-dos. It can do that automatically. And once again, share the customer journey information across multiple applications. So that's some of the ways it helps with overwhelmed agents. Then the next thing is it's related. You have agent attrition. Agent attrition in 2023 was 52%. And so you have that workforce engagement management that's building and reinforcing soft skills. Soft skills are things like empathy, active listening, deliberately having an effort to understand the customer, demonstrating ownership during the transaction. I'm going to do this for you. And then, by the way, effectively communicating. Things like that Sonus application we talked about earlier can help with that. You're getting intelligent analytics. And so now I can understand what's happening within our contact center. I can proactively share performance information with the agents. They love seeing how they're doing. And I'm getting feedback information, that survey information from the customers also. So it gives us some tangible data so that we can make decisions. Conversational intelligence is a way that now it's giving us information as the conversations happen, as the day goes through. It's guiding our agents through the transactions, and it's giving supervisors information so they know when to get involved. And finally, the simplified interfaces. It goes back to that Steve Jobs quote before. He made a big difference around how applications work. And so it streamlines the training, the onboarding process, makes it easier for them to do their job, All of this is going to make a difference with agent attrition. So you're going to be able to drive a lower turnover with your agents, easier to hire, easier to train, get people onboarded up to speed in a faster manner. And so let's take a look at the customer journey. So Hunter, if you recall the customer journey we had before, here's where it could work, what we might recommend in the situation that we had before where it was very difficult to get through. So first, we have the inquiry. I go through the web, I look up the information right on the website, but now maybe it gives a callback right from the web. I don't need to hang up and pick up the phone. It can call me back. Maybe schedule it right away for a better time so that I don't need to call in and do the scheduled callback. Maybe it's scheduling at that point in time, but it's a better time. It also is giving the digital engagement right there. So now I go to the website, I'm more likely to automate right through the website, but if not, I can get to a live agent or a chat bot and I can help it solve it myself. And finally, within a web form, I can collect all the information from the caller right then and there, gives them time to do it at their speed rather than when they're on the phone like I went through earlier this month. Next thing is, then I'm going to do the callback. It connects to the customer at their point in time where it can be solved. It delivers all that information that we collected in the web form right to the agent, right within the CRM. It brings up the customer record directly for the agent, prepares them for it. Upon connection, it confirms the contact. What that means is that you Doug Whitaker, and you can connect to the agent. And so it makes it a lot easier for the customer and the agent as everything goes through. During the agent interaction, whether it's digital or voice, it's going to be recorded. So now I have a transcript of what's going to be happening. I have the complete information around not just this interaction, but past interactions the customer went through. And AI conversational intelligence provides information to the agent, helps them through the transaction. And if there's a problem, it notifies the supervisor. And then after everything is done, after call work is automated, it captures the notes, it puts the transcript right within the record, it completes some information for the agent so that helps them through the to-dos, the action items that are coming out of it. And so it makes a more successful interaction. And so much more likely to have a happier customer, somebody that's going to keep doing business with you, etc. Any thoughts around it? Anything I missed within this customer journey? Other things we might think about?
No, you nailed it. I was just thinking about one, how important it is that in that first number one category right there, you're not only taking care of it from an omni-channel perspective, but we would classify that as inbound, right? But then because of the success you have with omni-channel, letting the customer or end user ultimately choose their way of engagement with you, you immediately have the outbound, right? So. Yeah. That's incredible that you're also calling back to a number that's already been authenticated, right? And then you get to confirm with that user. That's another piece of AI. It's just the idea that a virtual assistant, even on the callback, can handle the authentication process and then turn it over to a live agent, right? So I think that's in terms of what we expect to see. One of the things that I like to remind people all the time is if you want to know what enterprise is looking for, right, just start watching consumer, because consumers ultimately lead to business drivers, which lead to enterprise. And so you're always based on how you interact with your customer, and ultimately, what does this generation, what do all these generations of people ultimately, how do they want to connect to you, right? And what does that look like? And that's also a part of why omni-channel is important, because you got to be able to give all those different choices in order to reach your customer base and to service your customer base effectively for return business.
Absolutely. All right, so let's go back to that Deloitte study. Bottom line, they have this term that they use called the service innovator, and that's organizations that have adopted this omni-channel approach with AI, et cetera. And so according to the Deloitte Digital Study, service innovators are 1.6 times more likely to meet their strategic goals, 4.6 times more likely to report excellent customer satisfaction, and 2.5 times more likely to report excellent employee satisfaction. And so more business from customers, they're lower turnover for their employees. They also are exceeding their goals. According to the Deloitte study, service innovators were exceeding their financial goals by 11.7% in 2023. Meanwhile, the non-service innovators, none of them exceeded their goals. And so that's a big point around it. If you're looking to be able to be more efficient, the best way is to use a modern contact center application that is omni-channel, that uses AI to be able to help solve problems. It's a better customer experience and it's a better employee experience. Now, one of the things that everybody needs to think about when they're deploying a contact center application is security and compliance. And just so you know, the different contact center applications are going to be compliant with the various standards that are out there. PCI DSS is probably the most important one at a contact center. If you're taking either credit card or even personally identifiable information, you need to be able to make sure that that is secure. Same thing if you're in a healthcare situation, you have the HIPAA regulations, you have ISO, IEC regulations. If you're in a government situation, you need FedRAMP or FedRAMP compliance. You have SOC 2 and SOC 3, and then there's some other ones that are out there, CCPA, NIST, CSA STAR certification. Various providers have these different certifications. So it's one of those things that you need to take a look at when you're looking at the various applications that are out there. Some of the things that we want to take a look at. Let's look at a success story. AdaptHealth is a Genesys customer. They were using many different, Frankenstack situation, many different systems that were siloed. They weren't connected together. They weren't sharing information. They were made up of acquisitions, and that's probably why they did that. And so it's probably very difficult to manage. And then they needed better insight into their staffing needs, and they chose Genesys. Bottom line, in their situation, they wanted a consistent experience. They wanted a chat bot specifically for web messaging, and they wanted access through AI to knowledge-based articles. And so they got a 60% productivity gain. One of the recommendations their senior director had was that when selecting an AI solution, it's vital as a healthcare provider that they control the source code. They're able to do that with Genesys. Functions like reporting and analytics are inherently integrated right within the platform. That's because it's an omni-channel solution that's doing everything. That's a key benefit of going with one of these applications. Now, when taking a look at cloud overall, you're talking about one application that does everything. I mean, it's one vendor. You're eliminating upgrades because those upgrades are built into the service. You're eliminating the security audits. You're reducing labor because it's easier to use. It's one application. You don't have equipment that you need to depreciate. You don't have infrastructure refresh every few years. You certainly don't have annual maintenance costs. You don't have as much bandwidth that's necessary, and especially in a contact center situation with cloud, it's using over-the-top internet for voice. And so you're getting a high quality, but you're able to save money in doing that. There's no data center, so you're saving not just on the real estate of the data center, but the energy and the cooling associated with it. You don't have to lease it. You don't have insurance. You don't have the management of that data center. You have reduction in out-of-compliance downtime. And by the way, they're generally higher or have higher reliability than legacy applications that are out there. And then finally, from a training and adoption standpoint, much easier to do. So you're reducing the complexity and the training of your employees, not just administering it, but using it. From an ROI standpoint in the contact center, you're more efficient and you're more effective. And so this is affecting the customer and the employee experience. The first thing is from a CRM and a desktop integration standpoint, it's bringing up that information right away. What that means, it's driving adoption for CRM. So you're getting better use of your own applications internally, but also it's saving 30 or 45 seconds per call. You think about the cost of a contact, it's anywhere from 1.5 to 2 cents per second that you're saving. AI automation, you're talking about 25 cents per contact compared to 2020 numbers were $5.50 per agent handled transaction. Talking about intelligent routing, getting it to the right person right away. And so if you take a look around Erlang studies, you'll find that having one larger group that can handle everything is going to be much more efficient. In fact, it's about a 3% savings in labor compared to having separate groups. Digital transactions. Number one, they're more likely to be automated. That Deloitte study also found that organizations that had an omni-channel approach had a 9% lower cost per assistant contact. Workforce management is going to drive higher occupancy. That's employees in their seats working on customer interactions. Quality management is going to be able to drive a lower average handle time, but it's also going to be able to improve first contact resolution because your agents have better soft skills. And then finally, AI Assist is going to help your agents through it. It's going to be a lower average handle time, reduce the after call work process, et cetera. And by the way, happier agents, happier customers. And so you're elevating the customer experience, that's increasing revenue, you're increasing the productivity, you're lowering costs within the organization, and you're increasing your employee satisfaction, that's reducing that problem we learned about earlier with turnover. Now, why Cloud Design as a company? Well, that's because we help you through this process. We are an agent that helps you with the various vendors. Let's identify your needs that are out there. We collect all the information that's necessary. We work with you in identifying which vendors we want to take a look at. We go through the process with you in choosing that vendor. We help you through the procurement process. We also do both a TCO and an ROI as part of that process. So it's our expertise, it's our process, and then you see the various vendors that we work with, the industry leaders, companies like Zoom, NICE, Genesys, RingCentral, Five9, Call Tower, 8x8, TalkDesk, and others. When we talk about that process, that cloud assessment process that I mentioned earlier, it's a high-level assessment. That's where we work with various people within the organization, executives, managers, supervisors, and even agents. We take a look at their work process. We uncover the areas of opportunity where we think we can make an impact, make it easier for them, just give a more streamlined process, identify which are the applications that are going to make sense to use within it. Let's identify a roadmap for rolling out those applications within it. And then let's get an expected ROI from the identified opportunities. You want to focus around the low-hanging fruit, but let's look at overall, what can we do to improve the customer experience? Bottom line, you're getting something that is positioned for now and 5 years from now. And so Cloud Contact Center just makes sense. It's a unified solution. It's mission critical. That's financially backed. It's going to be secure. It's going to be compliant. It's going to be probably less expensive than you're even paying today with Frankenstack. That's the key thing around it. And this is a lot easier than it seems. I want to thank you for your time today. In the lower right-hand corner, you can scan that and go to our website. Cloud Design is an organization that helps you through this process. You'll end up on the other side with a much better solution, anywhere agents that are much more productive, much happier, and just a better situation for customers. Hunter, anything to add before we end today?
No, this is great. I encourage you, if you're watching this and you've got questions at all, or you're looking to start a digital transformation, or maybe you're as far into looking at a CCaaS replacement for maybe some premise-based equipment you've got today for a call center, or even unified communications in general, hit up Doug. He's the spot. He's going to help you get through it. Together, work and figure out exactly what meets your needs and what meets your budget and all the other fun pieces that come along with the technology stack. But like you said, it's easier than you think to make those decisions, and that's why Cloud Design is here.